How to build a rebalance or a fund switch case in Fintegrate. I'm going to select an existing case for my client Dubanovsky on the left here, and I've already completed the risk analysis, plugged in the existing policies either manually or through my Intelliflo or my platform integration. I have then analyzed these policies, and now I'm going to build a recommendation where I'm going to change the investments a little bit and potentially do a rebalance. So on the recommendation page, we have actions that we need to select. So I'll select a retain rebalance fund switch for both of my policies here. And you'll probably notice the risk score, which is on the left of those actions here. I'm currently using E-value on a scale of 1 to 10. You also have the possibility to use Finametrica with us as we integrate with them. So now that I have selected these two actions, I can take a look at the transaction record. That's very useful when you work as a team or you get interrupted to remember where you left off. The most important bit of the recommendation is that recommended portfolio table. So from here, you've got a few blue buttons, which are all the actions you can take for that case. And for today, we're going to focus on the manage investment. So I'll click on manage investment for my ISA, and I will decide what I need to do for that rebalance or that fund switch that I will execute here. So in this scenario, I have a custom portfolio, which I completely disagree with, for example. So I'm simply going to remove this investment. And what you're hopefully noticing here is that I've got a few suggestions. So all of these are part of my CIP, which you can build in Fintegrate. So you've got all your CIP, which would be risk mapped with either eValue or Finametrica. So in this scenario, I'm 6 out of 10, investing for less than 20 years, and these portfolios or funds are a good suggestion for my client based on their risk profile. I've covered this in a different video, but you can also do a different weightings across various portfolios or funds in order to match that risk profile. In this scenario, I'm simply going to select the Tatton Core Classic solution, for example, which is now showing up at the top. And I can obviously say that I want all of the money to be invested in this MPS. If you don't want to follow the risk mapping selection, you can select funds manually as well as your CIP selection from that dropdown. And of course, any model portfolio that you've not added into your CIP and manually select from here. In this scenario, I'm going to save and close, but if you were to have Tatton Classic to be used for any policy that you are currently reviewing, you have these options here in order to apply your selection to all the policies. But I'm going to save and close that selection just for this one, so I can show you another scenario for a different weighting. So I'll do this for my personal pension here. So it's loading the same page, but for my personal pension. Now, in my personal pension, I only have those 3 funds. I could remove a fund that I don't really like, for example, for that fund switch and select another fund manually here. But I'm simply going to proceed to a rebalance here. And I'm going to do pretty much the opposite here. Just for the sake of the example, I'm going to add a bit more into these two and less into the Aberdeen. And that's it. I'm just going to save and close that. So that's going to acknowledge my change for a bit of rebalancing. And I'm pretty much done here. You could add contributions and withdrawals into this case, of course, for any policy you have. We're not changing the platforms here because we're only doing a rebalance or fund switch or a portfolio switch. This is not a transfer I'm showing you today, but this is possible, and I'll show that in a different video. So now the rest of the report is going to be a comparison of our existing versus recommended policies from a risk perspective. So I'm taking a little bit less risk, for example, here. And we can also, of course, compare the costs and the charges on this table here. I will need to add my advisor charges on the next page. But before I do so, let's take a look at the performance where my recommended performance in blue here is thankfully doing better than the existing overall policies. And you can change the colors as well if you wanted to really make it your own. You can also, of course, change the time frame here, add any benchmark of your choice from our selection of over 400 benchmarks. But for those who really want to take a look at the detailed performance for each policy, this is pretty much what you want to see and tell your clients if you've done that fund switch and rebalance for all the policies. So you're really showing that difference here in the details. I'm going to stick to the summary to keep it simple for the clients. And then you can take a look at the cumulative, discrete, annualized, and calendar performances, as well as the max drawdown and max gain tables. All of this can be in a chart view as well, which you can decide to print later on. And the last two tables will be the scatter chart, where you can choose the performance period here at the top right. So we're really able to visually tell the client that by taking potentially less risk, they could achieve a better performance in my scenario. And then we take a look at the breakdown, so our asset classes here. So in blue, our recommended portfolio, we're taking a lot less risk by investing more into bonds compared to where we were with the existing investments, which were quite heavily into UK equity, for example. You can take a look at it from a more simplified view, where you compare equities versus fixed income. You can also look at the sectors and the country and regional breakdown, again, to take a look at that recommended existing breakdown for equity and fixed income. So once you're happy with your recommendation, you move on to the advisor charge, where you can add your initial charge or an ongoing charge, which I will do here for you. So I'm going to apply a 0.50% charge across all my policies. And that's now going to be reflected towards the report and towards that chart, so the client really understands how much of the money is coming out of the pot, along with the charges overview with the pounds and pennies for all of those charges that are being applied on the policies. So the last page is a summary of everything we've covered today, and that's, of course, you can add your executive summary and download a report, which is available in both PDF and Word. And this is where you can really pick and select the pages you want to print out that are the most relevant to your clients. You can also potentially add more charts, whether that's the performance or the scatter charts on any of those, and obviously add more information as you wish. For those with the Intelliflo integration, you can export that into your files in Intelliflo, but I'll download this as a PDF for now so we can go through the report. So once the report has downloaded, you can, of course, in your settings, put your logo, white label all of this, and change any of the pictures and cover images. And that's everything we have covered today, along with the risk analysis, the analysis of the existing policies, which are covered in another video. But then the core of the report will be here for the recommendation. Why did we do what we did here in terms of rebalance and fund switch? How are we going to be invested? And that's everything that we took a look at in that recommendation summary page, recommended versus existing portfolio.